In this episode, we deal with one or two of the woes and problems that have popped up since I last visited the boat. We actually get out on the water, even though the weather is absolutely atrocious, and then have a look at one or two wherries that happen to be plying their trade around Oulton Broad. Hi there, well I'm back at the boat today and there has been a small problem. When I arrived the floor was completely soaked and I had to use several towels to get it all mopped up and dried up, and it seems the problem is we had heavy rain overnight and the canopy is just no longer waterproof, and so I had to troop off down to the camping shop to buy some Fabsil. I already had some on board but I knew I didn't have enough, and so that's exactly what I did. And I had a range of products to choose from and I didn't know which one to buy, so I bought them all. This is what we've used before. It's called just Fabsil Universal Protector. It's relatively cheap, £14 for a tin, and you can get a larger tin for about £20. But I've been advised to use this, which is called Fabsil Gold. It's kind of like the gold standard really for waterproofing, and I want to use this on the main bimini top because that takes the brunt of the water. And what I'll do is use what I've got left from my universal protector, my normal protector, to just go around the rest of the canopy edges. I've also been advised to get one of these, which is a tin, a spray-on tin, because quite often what you can do is give the inside a quick spray as well and it will soak upwards back through the material. What I do need though is around about 6 hours of drying time, because if you get this wet before the 6 hours is up, it kind of doesn't set properly and it disrupts the siliconization. I believe that's the correct phrase. So what I'm going to do is hash up a pot from an old Coke bottle, get a 2-inch paintbrush and get busy on the outside of the boat. Definitely the best way to apply Fabsil is with a 2-inch brush, I found, although this one's been in and out of the pot a little bit because I have made a start and I have done the roof, and this stuff smells, I've got to tell you, it really does. I'm being a little bit lazy. I've dropped the front flap down and going to do the front section next. It hasn't been forecasted to rain, but that cloud looks really ominous, and I've just done the roof bimini section. I didn't film that unfortunately because I was climbing all over the roof and I'm fairly knackered now, but I've dropped this front section down, and as I said, it takes 6 hours for this to cure properly. It soaks in quite a lot, but it's really good in what it does. So just a 2-inch brush, all I'm going to do is to dab at it. Look, my brush is knackered, it's got wings, and in fact I think I may hold off doing this if it looks like it's going to rain, but I think what I will do is just do this top section here and then I'll work around the whole of the front, and then from that I'm going to do the sides. Well, the sun's back out, so I'm back on it again now. Let's pick up from where we left off. I'm committed to getting this piece finished now, so let me get the middle bit done first. I think the main parts that leak are this front screen and the bimini top, but as I said, I managed to get a coat on the bimini top earlier, several hours ago, and it's mainly just this front section I really want to concentrate on. I've checked the weather app again, it says no more rain for 3 hours. My neighbours just got back. They went out yesterday in the rain and now they come back and the sun's come out. Yeah, that's just boating for you, isn't it? Weather's been awful, and I was watching the news this morning. Last year the flooding towards the end of the year was abysmal, and the rain was abysmal, and yet all the weatherman could say to us this morning was we're stuck back in this same weather cycle that we had at the tail end of last year, and we can expect a lot more rain. That's yeah, that's not really what we want to be hearing. I think I've got a couple of splashes on the vinyl there. Let's get that bit done. The good news with this is it takes so long to soak in and siliconize, I think is the word. I'm sure that's not right. That you can actually see where you've done and where you've missed. But the very fact it's soaking in is tantamount to how porous, as I said earlier, how porous this canvas material has become with age. So, and washing and everything else that's happened with it since. But you do go through a lot. You'll use a lot more Fabsil than you think you're going to use. You see how that soaks in, look. And let's get that right in there. All these edges. There you can see just that brief rainstorm we had just now. The water just sitting on top. It's not the cleanest canopy, but with the water just sitting on top of the canopy there rather than soaking in. So I think it's worked. Even what I'd put on there already, I think it's worked. So that's a good sign. Hey, I know that was like watching paint dry for the last 6 minutes, but now it was time to get out onto the river and go for a visit to Oulton Broad and stay somewhere that we'd never stayed before.
Beneath the shadows of this quiet town, I see you there, your feathers on the ground. Your eyes are heavy with the weight of the world, what's in a life you never could afford. Even if you've never flown before, you can take a chance and try once more. Don't let your worries weigh you down, down, down. You can still take flight, although you're earthbound.
This is a marina that I once used to moor in, Reedham Marina. It's a really pretty small marina. I know it's been sold now, it's not the same owner. But yeah, very fond memories of being in there. It's a tiny marina. It did silt up quite a lot though, and getting into the berth used to be a bit of a challenge sometimes. But now, moving him back in to the new cut, my favourite piece of water, not. And I still maintain this must be the most boring piece of river. Wow.
Although you're earthbound. Even if you never flown before, though you're earthbound. You're earthbound.
So Broadlands Marina has been taken over by Ting Dean, and since it's done so, it's installed a whole raft of new floating pontoons and also invested in new showers. The caravan park has a pub bar restaurant, and that's also been taken over by Moss & Co. And so standards there have really gone up. It's really becoming a desirable location because it's only a short walk from here through to Nicholas Everett Park. And although previously they had quite a large number of liveaboard vessels down here, actually along this little corner, some years ago they got taken into what was called adjacent waters, so they became tollable for the Broads Authority. Back in the day they didn't have tolls, and so there was a whole little community there at one time. You can see here the older part of the marina is concrete, and what they've done to mitigate this concrete wall is they've installed, it's quite a clever idea actually, a piece of polypipe that just stops the boats being pushed against the concrete wall. You can see the F33 there. It's just kind of sitting at the back there on the top of the outdrives. I'm not so sure about that, but this is the new block here, and that's the bar. So the bar restaurant's really lovely inside. And quite a large caravan park. A footpath goes right through, and it goes all the way through here to Carlton Marshes. So it's actually quite a pleasant walk on a nice day. Today isn't a nice day. And these are the new harbour office and showers. I want one of those bins. I've just found the ultimate device here. Look at this. Here's the waste bin. You just put your hand in front of it and it magically opens. I want that bin. That is the bin. Hey Bob, what do you think of that? Well, I'm not sure about that there. Let me think. Okay, there you go. The bin of the century. Right, shower time for me. Scruffy gaff. And I'll see you shortly. They're feeling just a little bit more human now, and with the sweet smell of Sauvage. I think today that'll do. But the hair's looking a little bit more tidier, and a little bit of that muck off my face as well. So all good. Thumbs up for the showers at Broadland. This has got to be the cutest tiny boat I think I've ever seen. I think you can just about stand up in it. Look at that. Isn't that just great? I've popped extra fenders in here. I bet you can see. Look at that. It's just crushing the fenders down there. I've tried to put them low so they don't hop out, but I think I'm going to have to get another fender in there. I think that's pretty close, isn't it? Meanwhile, this little boat here is being literally just pushed backwards and forwards. I'm hoping it's not damaging it. I don't think so. I think the fenders are just catching it at just the right place there. And these kids on these toppers are absolutely loving it out here. The speeds that I've seen them getting up to is just madness. They're really, really going fast today. But what a day for sailing. Not a day for motor cruising though. And another nasty black rain cloud coming in. The weather was looking really grotty, but it was time to have a walk down to Oulton Broad, through the little park track, having a look at some of the old boats that are still resting there, because in Oulton Broad there were two very special boats that I really wanted to have a look at. This is Tubby's Marina, and here along the park riverbank is where there used to be a community of liveaboards. Sadly, a boat that looks like it's had and seen better days. Now of that boat smacking away on the metal key heading, that's not doing it any good whatsoever. It looks like it's a long time since that boat's been used as well. And I have to say the same for most of the boats along here. It's a real shame. It's always very sad to see forgotten boats just left, and in your mind you conjure up an image of a boat being restored and being brought back to life. The two boats I wanted to see had gone through exactly that process. The beautiful Wherries, Ardea and White Moth, are just two of the 8 remaining wherries that are being sailed under charitable trusts and looked after by volunteers. This is their story. For hundreds of years, goods were moved around the country by water, and Norfolk and Suffolk were no different, but they benefited from large, wide open waterways, and to capitalise on this, large wooden vessels called wherries with a single counterbalance mast, which was often unstayed, were built and plied trade up and down the rivers up until the end of the Victorian era. Sadly, with the arrival of rail and road, much of the trade dwindled. But it wasn't long before the wherry operators realised that they could capitalise on the growing Victorian need for a holiday, and before long wherries were being built rather than converted specifically just for pleasure. Over the years many were sunk or just lost to the water, and now 8 remain under the custodianship of charitable trusts. I was really lucky to see 2 of them at a single location, the beautiful pleasure wherry Ardea and the fantastic wherry yacht White Moth. White Moth is one of the 5 wherries operated by Wherry Yacht Charter. It has a really interesting history though. Built in 1915 by Ernest Collins for a private owner, Arthur Moore, it remained a privately owned craft until it was brought back into the Wherry Yacht Charter business in 1921. She remained with the Collins family until the 1960s and then was sold to John Linford, who worked to restore White Moth back to her original sailing order. In 1969 the wherry became a liveaboard vessel, and the couple who lived on board had a mighty argument one evening, which resulted in one of them cutting a hole in the hull, and the wherry then subsequently sank at the small dyke in Neatishead. The Moth was then bought for £300 and work to restore her and replank the bottom began again. The boat eventually ended up out of the water on the slipway at Brundall in 1980 with large holes in the hull, and in 1985 she was bought by the mighty Colin Facey, who bought her for £1,000, took her back to the Horning Yard, and after 4 years she was finally transformed back to her former glory. White Moth was the last of the wherry yachts to be built and the longest and probably the most agile. The skippers love helming her and she looks beautiful on the river. At 65 feet and 32 tons, Ardea, Latin for heron, is just simply magnificent. It was designed and built by Leo Robinson at his yard in Oulton Broad for the very rich Howard Hollingsworth. Commissioned to be a pleasure wherry from the outset, Hollingsworth could enjoy cruises around the Norfolk Broads in comfort. It was launched in September 1927 and changed hands multiple times after Hollingsworth sold her in 1934 and eventually crossed English Channel in December 1958 and was actually moored opposite the Eiffel Tower amongst a row of other houseboats. It was purchased by a Parisian madame who allowed her girls to spend their spare time relaxing on board. Hey, and if only walls could talk. In the 1970s, Ardea was sold again and bought by Philip Rolfe, a Frenchman who travelled extensively on the European waterways, and the wherry was returned back to the Broads in 2005, before passing to the hands of the Wherry Yacht Charter Charitable Trust in 2015. Inside the spacious vessel, the highly varnished walls and the modern touches bring a little bit of new to the old. The stateroom has a 5-octave piano, unusual in the homes and the bars around Britain, but not unusual on boats, especially those wherries of the Broads and the travellers gone by. It is simply an absolutely stunning craft, and at 65 feet she looks amazing on the water.